Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about why the fearful avoidant tends to want to shut down or push people away and what we can actually do about this. But first, if you're new to my channel, my name is Marcella. I'm an attachment practitioner trained by Tice Gibson in the Personal Development School. I have a bachelor's degree in business and I've been studying the field of personal development and attachment theory for the past 5 years now. Fearful avoidants. Fearful avoidants, they tend to have really grown up in a lot of trauma, chaos, or abuse. Usually the biggest key factor in all fearful avoidance is growing up in highly chaotic environments. And usually one of the biggest factors here is growing up with inconsistent caregiving, where sometimes your caregiver was very nice and loving, and other times maybe they weren't so loving and they didn't show up for you, or they were angry or maybe mean because maybe they had some mental health conditions or struggling with a personality disorder or having some form of addiction going on, whatever that looks like. Usually the fearful avoidant child had some very positive associations to love and connection and some very negative associations to what it means to have love and connection. And because there was this inconsistency, it really created in the fearful avoidant this wound that says, I can't trust the people that I love and I will eventually be betrayed, because the inconsistency in childhood made the fearful avoidant child believe that they were being betrayed when these things were taking place. Let's say your caregiver was very nice one day and then the next day you come home and now they're angry and they're yelling at you and they're being volatile, right? This feels like betrayal to the fearful avoidant, and this is where fearful avoidants tend to develop their betrayal and trust core wound that tends to shine bright in every single fearful avoidant. So 3 reasons why fearful avoidants tend to kind of shut down and push people away. This is really associated with the feelings of being unsafe in their environment. One thing I really need you to understand about fearful avoidance is that they are very hyper attuned to people and they are very sensitive to any changes. So because fearful avoidants grew up in very unpredictable homes, they tend to have made this adaptation, this coping mechanism to where, like, if they could be very hyper attuned to everybody around them and to be able to predict what might happen, then they can predict, the possibility or threat of being betrayed, and they can shut down and abandon ship before they have to experience this pain again. So that is why fearful avoidants tend to be very hyper vigilant in their relationships, notice every little pattern change, any tone of voice change. This really causes fearful avoidance to kind of go into the spiral of feeling unsafe. Now, the 3 main reasons why fearful avoidance can tend to shut down and pull away. Number 1 is going to be if there is inconsistencies and incongruencies in their relationship dynamic. If somebody is saying they're going to be home at 5 p.m. and they don't get home till 6 p.m. and there's no communication around why this is going on, fearful avoidance, because they have the trust core wound, they tend to jump into this negative conclusion and they spiral into all these negative thoughts that come up. Maybe like my partner's doing something sneaky, or why haven't they called me yet? And they tend to feel like they're being betrayed. So this causes fearful avoidance whenever there's inconsistencies or incongruencies. Let's say your partner normally texts you every day and now they're only texting you every 2 days. These types of pattern changes really affect the fearful avoidant at their core, and it makes them feel like they are going to be betrayed. It touches on that trust core wound, because remember, in early childhood, whenever there was inconsistencies, sometimes it could be something good and sometimes it could be something bad, and they associated that with betrayal. So the same thing happens in their adult life whenever there's inconsistencies and incongruencies in the relationship dynamic. I just wanted to jump on here and let you know that I have a fearful avoidant blueprint located on my website for only $10, and this shows you into the characteristics, traits of the fearful avoidant attachment style. If you're interested in purchasing this, it will be in the link in the description box below. Reason number 2 is going to be if there's an imbalance in the relationship between space and then connection. So Fearful avoidants tend to kind of swing between anxious and avoidant. That's really what fearful avoidants are all about. They swing between hot and cold. So if you might notice, if you are a fearful avoidant, if you're with somebody who is anxiously attached and this person wants a lot of proximity, a lot of reassurance, a lot of validation, this tends to make a fearful avoidant feel kind of trapped in a sense, and they want to shut down and pull away and kind of push that person far away because it's triggering one of their wounds. The same thing happens if a fearful avoidant is in a relationship dynamic with someone who is dismissive avoidant and who doesn't really have this high need for connection and isn't really reaching out constantly to try to maintain that proximity. Well, now fearful avoidants can feel a little anxious, right? But the anxious feeling is just kind of feeling a little anxiety around why is this going on? But then they tend to shut down and pull away because they feel unsafe when there's not too much connection going on that is giving them reassurance that everything is okay in the relationship dynamic. Number 3 is going to be feeling like they don't matter. Fearful avoidants tend to often feel like they don't matter, and usually this comes from a lack of communicating your needs, right? As a fearful avoidant, you might notice that you tend to put everyone else before you, and you have this very caretaking nature about you. And you tend to really be hyper attuned to people. So you really tune in to what their needs are, what they like, and then you show up for that accordingly. And then when it's not reciprocated back to you in that same way, or people aren't asking you, hey, what do you need? And really showing up and just kind of mind reading, then you tend to feel like you don't matter, right? And when you feel like you don't matter, you're feeling unseen, unheard in the relationship. This also is touching on a fearful avoidance core wound, and it makes them feel unsafe and kind of want to shut down and pull away because they're feeling like this person isn't showing up for them in the relationship. And if they aren't showing up for me, then that must mean that they're not interested in me, and therefore I'm unsafe here because I've attached to them and they're not showing up for me. I'm about to be betrayed. So I shut down, I withdraw, and I pull away, or I push someone very far away, right? So what can we actually do about this? What can we actually do if we have these deactivating strategies going on? Well, number 1, it's going to be learning to communicate the need for consistency and consideration, congruency, transparency, these types of things in your relationship dynamic, because fearful avoidants have the trust core wound. I know I've said this time and time again, but because you have this, it is your biggest wound. You need to be able to communicate the importance of consistent communication, to have consideration when people are making decisions, that they are taking you into consideration in the process, and to have that congruency. So it's like what people say and what they do really needs to align. And if it doesn't, just having a little bit of context around why can give you a sense of relief there and feel like there's a lot of transparency and openness, and you don't have to read between the lines and put the pieces of the puzzle together, because when you do that, you tend to jump to some kind of negative conclusion. Again, like, I'm going to be betrayed. This person isn't really being honest with me. I can't put my trust into them. I am unsafe. Number 2 is going to be being able to find this healthy balance between building a life of your own outside of your relationship, as well as being able to create the connection that you truly desire. Fearful avoidants really thrive in their own independence, but they have all these fears that are kind of blocking them and showing up. So it's like they tell themselves these stories like, if I'm not here with my partner all of the time, or if I'm not showing up for them, that they are not going to be emotionally invested in the relationship, and they're eventually going to lose interest and they're going to pull away. So fearful avoidants tend to stay stuck right here, always wanting to show up and be there for their partner. And then they kind of have this feeling of like trapped, or like helplessness, because they also want to do things outside of the relationship, but they have all these fears that are kind of blocking them. And when they feel that way, they can tend to kind of shut down and just pull away, because they really need a little bit of independence and to have a sense of self, as well as having a healthy connection in their relationship dynamic as well. So whatever healthy habits you can implement to be able to start creating connection in your relationship. Maybe that's date nights, maybe that's going out on the weekends and, having deep conversations, whatever that is, to create healthy connection, as well as creating healthy habits for having a life outside of that, going out and do things with friends, creating a new hobby, maybe going out and doing a cooking class. Being able to bring that balance will make you feel much more safe and you'll be able to be more present. Number 3 is going to be able to work through your stories that come up when you are feeling triggered or when you are feeling like you want to express a need. So a lot of the times when we are feeling triggered, we can jump to a negative conclusion, right? Like if your partner is running late from work, you might jump to the conclusion that they are doing something sneaky. I need you to stop in this moment and ask yourself, can I really know that this is true? Question your stories. The short answer is no. What else could it be other than the meaning that I'm giving it? Well, maybe they stopped at the store, maybe they got a flat tire, maybe their work was a little running late today. Whatever that looks like, find 3 pieces of evidence to oppose the original interpretation, because you don't want to be investing in these one-sided negative stories without actually knowing what is going on, right? And then these stories that come up around being able to ask for your needs, this is big for the fearful avoidant, because fearful avoidants have a fear of like vulnerability. It's almost like if I go ask for something, they're not going to show up for me, or they're going to think I'm weak, or they're going to think I'm a burden, or, it's not okay if I ask for my needs, right? Whatever these stories look like for you, I want you to question these stories. So if it's they're not going to show up anyways, can I know that this is true? Short answer is no. Have I tried to go communicate this in a healthy way? Because a lot of the times maybe we've done it in healthy ways and didn't get a healthy response. But can I empower myself to go communicate in a healthy way? And then there's a possibility that they show up. Yes, don't let these limiting beliefs or these fears that are based on wounded parts of yourself prevent you from showing up in your relationship and asking for the things that you need and desire moving forward. I hope this makes sense. I'm sending lots of love to all the fearful avoidants in this community. God bless.